Okay, so as I'm sticking down these, let me tell you who I am. I'm Tanya, or Tanya, like they call me in Australia, and you're on my channel. So today I'd like to share a little bit of rose drawing with you, as a few people have asked about that, and apparently last week I didn't demonstrate it properly, although I thought I did. So today we're going to go in depth, and we're going to literally start with sketching out the basic principles and discovering how you can develop your rose into something that looks more realistic. And it's all about the lines we use and all about the shapes. Hopefully the Sharpie works. So if you have a look at a whole bush of roses, and I could show you something quickly. It's a book I use often for inspiration. It's Van Gogh's Flowers. There is a spread in here of just a bush of roses, and I find it absolutely beautiful. If you haven't checked out this book yet, okay, so there's 2 pages, one like that, and as you can see, it's just shapes. He uses shapes and different colors. So your lighter colors are the highlighted areas, and the darker colors are where the petals meet in the corners like that. You'll have a little dark spot, and then where the petal leaf is on the outside catching the sun, you'll have a light area. The next one, look at how pretty that is. I hope the book isn't making glaring. So you have, it's just shapes around, and remember every petal comes from the outside inwards, so it's wide at the edge and thin where it connects with the inside. Look there, just a few brush strokes and he's created those beautiful roses. Okay, so if we have a look, you have your rose shape. Please don't draw circles, because when you have the center in there, guess what it looks like? A donut. We're not drawing donuts. We're drawing roses. So and I'm doing little wild roses now. They are simple, and then a little scallop edge and back to the center. So from the center, scallop edge, back to the center. From the center, scallop edge, and back to the center. And roses normally, well, these wild roses normally have 5 petals. So you can just tuck in your 5 little petals, and when you want to add a stem, the stem comes from the middle down. Roses normally have 3 leaves, 1, 2, 3. But wild roses have a whole set of leaves, and they all come out from the point outwards, make a nice bulge back to where it started, and the opposite leaf is right there at the same spot. You're going to have leaves that overlap, pretend like they are tucked behind each other. All right, what else? It has little growth of, I think they're called stamen, and I called these little fluffy bits last time because I couldn't get to the name, and guess what, I still don't have the name. So they are literally standing upright on this base, each in their own direction, but what you'll notice, if it looks towards you, it is shorter, and when it looks away from you, it's longer. So pretend the pen is your stamen, and every time you angle it somewhere else, you'll see it has either a long edge or a short edge. So the same goes for that. And if you have a dot, you know that you're looking at it straight on. And having these variations will give the illusion, oops, I did the dot first and then the stamen, that's okay. We're creating illusions, that's what we're doing. And in art, if something suggests to be something, then our eyes will fill in the rest and we don't have to worry about the details. The details will fill in by themselves. So I've got some paint here from pictures I'm doing, little landscapes over there. I'll probably turn that into a whole series. But this is what's left on the palette, and I'm just quickly going to demo how easy you can just get a rose from drawing to painting. And this is like kids' craft drawing sheets that I use to protect my background surfaces. I'll just add a little bit of yellow because I want the center to be yellowish, and I don't have any white left on my palette anymore, so there's the white. And when we do white roses or light colored roses, they have a variety of shades in them. They aren't just white. Just going to get a base color into those leaves. I am using pink, yes, because I don't know how well the light white will show on the camera. So this is for your viewing pleasure. There's going to be a little bit of an abstract rose, but you're going to get the gist of how to do this. So adding the dark closer to the center, just in random strokes, not really blending, not really filling in anything, just covering that area. We can disconnect the petals a little bit later. This is like a underpainting, just to get some color on there. Okay, and again the darker shades to the center, and as we move out we'll go gradually lighter. As you can see, I'm just slapping this on. The paint I'm using is acrylic. You can use any medium you have. You can relay the same information into pencil work or oil paint if you have knowledge of that medium. You can use watercolors. With watercolor, I would advise that you reserve your whites or your lights and do thin washes initially, because with watercolor you cannot go lighter unless you're cheating and using gouache or white gouache to paint over that. I don't have a problem with any of those techniques, but if you're going to be a little bit of a watercolor purist, I'd suggest that you rather stick with the way the watercolor purists do things, and that is reserving your whites. You can see my brush strokes are really messy. I'm not going for perfection here, and believe it or not, I have no intentions of doing anything realistic. I want things to be new and fresh, because that rose already exists. Why would I copy it? I'd rather create something new. And that's the way I feel about a lot of art. Anything I attempt that's art related. See how I'm adding some highlights just on strategic points. You can already see the shape of that rose taking place. So what I was saying is I'd rather recreate or redevelop something than to copy it exactly, because the thing already exists and there's no reason to make it again. We can never copy it perfectly enough, and I used to be a perfectionist for way too long, and I'll tell you what, that type of thing will really mess you up. You need to relax with yourself and allow things to happen. Gosh, if nothing ever happened to us, then nothing would ever happen to us. I think that would be so boring if we had nothing happening. So let's get those last petal highlights in. And as you can see, the acrylic covers those marks pretty good. And we can spend hours fiddling and niggling at this poor flower, and I can promise you it's not going to get much better than those initial strokes, because you'll always find something fault with it. You'll always look for mistakes and try and fix them, and that's no way to let loose on your creativity. You really have to let go of those self-imposed limitations. That's what they are, self-imposed limitations. So I had a little bit of a light pale grey on my palette, and I'm just making color marks because it's also light in value. I can add it between the mid-tone and the light. Just make brush strokes to make it a little bit interesting. Okay, so I'm going to start on a little golden yellow center. So whatever was left on the brush, I'm just dipping my brush into that gold and adding it to the center. So it's looking pretty pale now, so I have some burnt umber here. Can you see how I'm using all the leftover paint tube containers? And with acrylic, it's really nice when that acrylic dries on your palette and you left it overnight, you can just peel the paint off and your palette's brand new and clean again. I've been using this one for about 2 years now. Not always, but today it came in handy. So I just took a little bit of that burnt umber, just a solid amount, and all I'm doing is smushing. That's a technical term. I'm smushing it into that center, and then I'm going to take some extra gold and just put that in there, maybe a bit more, and then give us some of the darker color streaked into the petals right there from that center. Some areas you can use the gold by just dipping your point in. Some areas use the burnt umber. We are just showing the eyes where to look. Now if you like that a little more blended, you can absolutely blend it while the paint is still a little wet. That also gives you lovely effects. A lot of people are afraid to put their hands in their paint, and I get it. There are very toxic paints out there, but just don't buy those. Buy the ones that are non-toxic and use them. Oops. See, if you smudge your finger into the light, it will draw the light where you put your finger down on the next move. Okay, so now I would like to define those little stamens. So I'm just making a little mix between the leftover green and the burnt umber and that gold. And instead of drawing them in like I did with the line work, I'm merely going to suggest them here with a few dark spots. Now technically this could be any flower, but I wouldn't be bothered by anybody's opinion about what they think it is. In my mind, I was drawing a rose. So you can take it at face value and do with the information what you want. For me, this is my rose. Some of that leftover green, just going to, now the shape is there. So you know rose leaves have these edgy bits. So you can just use your brush and on that edge just make little jagged marks and then fill in your leaf. We tend to make things so difficult, and because we're trying to fix everything all the time, we're trying to make that look better and make that feel right, and that's unnecessary. That looks like a leaf. You can identify the jagged edge, and that should be enough. We should be satisfied with what we've created. And the color difference, don't color everything in like you do in grade school. Just what's on the brush, wipe it off onto the palette. You can work either from the edge out or from the inside outwards. Whichever way you feel more comfortable. All right. Scrubbing in that little bit of green in the middle just to fill it up. So this leaf is behind. It's going to be darker. So then you just add a little bit of darker paint. And slightly cut into those edges. Nobody's going to look at your painting with a fine-tooth comb and say, oh, she did this wrong and she did that wrong. We can never do anything wrong unless we're doing criminal activities, and artists don't do things like that. We don't have time. We paint. There we go. So you can see that leaf is behind. This one, I also drew it to be behind, but I'm going to bring it forward, which means we're going to need a lighter shade. So let's use what's on the palette, add the green and the pink. And if you know your palette, you know that a green and a pink will make a more of a neutral color, depending on what you add it with. So you have almost like a neutral brown there, that's okay. Brown and green appears natural to our eyes, so you don't have to fiddle with that too much. Okay, I'm going to quickly move through these. This is another dark leaf. I don't want to keep you here all day. I want you to go out and go paint and not be bothered about anything else but enjoying yourself. I want this leaf to stick out the back a little bit. There we go, nice and dark. Looks kind of scruffy, and that's okay. I like scruffy leaves. I can make that one a little bit lighter. Well, there we go, just right. Okay, so This is like a, if you could ever have a mustard green, I think this is like a mustard green. That's what I'm calling it. The tube says green gold. I'm calling it a mustard green. I like where this is going. Maybe a bit darker over there. And yes, this is a little bit whimsical and playful, but you don't have to be serious all the time. I'm just going to add a little bit of the colors that are on the palette, just to give some layers and some interest. Maybe just do some mixed pinks and greens over there. I love using pink and green together. The combination works very well. Now some gold, not overdo it, just add a little bit. You don't want your eye to jump somewhere unexpectedly. It must be guided into all the colors. There we go. I like that. A little bit of green and the gold, just add it into there. Just for the heck of it. And then lastly, we could make the whole background dark, and I don't have black paint on my table right now to add to those, but I do see my black ink. And what does it matter? This is a demonstration. You can interpret it the way you want. So I'm just opening this little black ink pot of mine using the same brush, and I'm going to outline, because flowers are in and black is back. At least in my mind, I've always loved using black in my art. I've had 2 or 3 art fanatics tell me that one should never use black in your paintings, and on that day I actually went ahead and bought black ink, and I bought black paint, and I bought another black shirt because black works in art. And it may be dull, but that's exactly why I want to add it to that background. I want the background to be dull, but also be the darkest thing. And why? Well, it will make this rose pop. So will some of these black ink marks on top of that wet acrylic. We get tied down about rules and regulations and nonsense far too often, instead of just being a little freer with our creativeness. So I'm going to have this video up on Facebook for a few hours, and I'm going to send a copy to my PC so that I can go ahead and edit out all the ums and ahs, maybe add some music and have it as a proper video on YouTube, just so that you can watch it again and again without going through the whole thing. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can go ahead. It's Anso Designs, and just hit that subscribe button. If you want, hit the notification bell, customize that so that you can get my notifications the minute I add new videos. You can get SMS notifications, email notifications, anything. And you'll see on the drop down menu below the video where the description is, I always have links there for all the new and interesting things happening at the moment. Well, I'm not going to talk anymore. I've got no words left except say thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.